Living in the shadow of a large dam means you have placed your trust in the engineers who designed it. Because if there were any errors in their calculations, the result could be a deadly catastrophe. When a dam breaches, the consequent water surge can carry away all before it, destroying property and killing humans and livestock. As this list shows, when mistakes are made during dam construction, the results can be truly horrific. Some final words of reassurance: the vast majority of dams don't fail. Number 10. Bangqiao Dam in China, 1975. A fierce typhoon hit the western Chinese province of Henan in August 1975, which had devastating consequences. There was a massive dam standing 387 feet tall in the province, spanning the Ru River. Completed in 1952, the Bangqiao Dam was constructed with an interior of tightly packed clay with an overlay of sand. Its purpose was to provide irrigation for farmland in the adjacent Huai River basin. The reservoir created by the dam had a capacity of 158 billion gallons. The dam had been designed to withstand anything but a flood level expected to occur only once in 1,000 years. Unfortunately, that once came along when a ferocious typhoon appeared just 5 years after the dam was finished. This cataclysmic weather event was so severe that 55 inches of rain fell in 3 days on an area that normally had 32 inches in an entire year. That was too much for the Bangqiao Dam, and it failed, releasing a deluge 33 feet high and up to 7 miles wide. Firm casualty figures are hard to come by, but by one estimate, as many as 230,000 perished. Number 9. Machu Dam II in Gujarat, India, 1979. It was August 1979, and the torrential monsoon rains were soaking the Indian province of Gujarat. Nothing unusual about the annual downpour that usually sweeps across much of the subcontinent. But that year, things were different. The rainfall was almost apocalyptic, and the consequences of this were clear to see on the Machu River, which was flowing deep and fast. In fact, the river was so swollen by the rain that the Machu Dam II was forced to open the floodgates that protect the integrity of the structure in times of exceptional rainfall. But the release of water wasn't enough to stop floodwaters pouring over the earth banks that edged the dam. That was enough to destroy the structure. Some of those in the path of the raging flood that was now released had already evacuated to higher ground, undoubtedly saving their lives. Many others had not. Accurate casualty figures simply don't exist, but one estimate has it that 25,000 may have perished. Number 8. South Fork Dam in Pennsylvania, 1889. Constructed from rock and packed earth, the South Fork Dam was about 8 miles to the east of Johnstown, Pennsylvania. The original 918-foot-long structure stood 72 feet high and was built in 1852. That version of the dam partially failed just a decade after it had been completed. A man named Benjamin Ruff bought the remains of the dam and adjoining land in 1872 with plans to repair the dam and build a luxury resort. And so came into being the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, patronized by rich industrialists of the day such as Henry Frick and Andrew Carnegie. But catastrophe struck in 1889 when a violent storm inundated the area with torrential rainfall, enough to cause the collapse of the dam on the last day of May 1889. In fact, modifications made to the dam's design by Ruff were at least partly to blame for the failure, which released 20 million tons of water and resulted in 2,209 deaths. In 1959, the Voyager Dam in the Italian Alps was completed, marking it as one of the largest dams in the world at that time. Despite the structure itself being well built and not breaching, a disastrous flooding event in 1963 still devastated the area. The catastrophe was triggered by a massive landslide, compounded by the fact that the dam's reservoir had been filled beyond its design limits. Positioned precariously, a massive landslide from the adjacent Monte Toc sent 260 million cubic meters of rock plunging into the man-made lake. This was enough to cause water to spill massively over the top of the dam. The ensuing deluge was so powerful that it created a wall of air which tore the clothes from the disaster's victims. Tragically, the best estimate puts the number of deaths at around 2,000. In 1943, the failure of 2 of the 3 Ruhr Valley dams in Germany had a notably different cause compared to other dam failures. This was no accident. It was a deliberate act of war. One night in May 1943, a squadron of 19 Lancaster bombers took off from England, tasked with destroying the dams using a specially developed bouncing bomb. The original plan was to destroy all 3 dams, but only the Ader and the Mona were breached. The Sorpe Dam survived the attack, yet that was enough to wreak havoc on the ground. Among the 133 British airmen who flew on the mission, 53 were killed. Those in the path of the deluge fared much worse, with German dead and missing numbering 545. Not only Germans were affected, 749 Dutch, Ukrainian, French, and Belgian workers and prisoners also lost their lives or were unaccounted for, bringing the total casualties to just short of 1,300. The Puentes Dam, constructed in 1802 in the southeastern Murcia region of Spain, was at that time the country's longest, stretching 940 feet from end to end. Located just over 7 miles from the city of Lorca, the dam stood 165 feet tall. Designed by Geronimo Ortiz de Lara, its construction began in 1785 and took 6 years to complete. Perhaps ominously, this dam was built to replace another that had failed in 1648. After nearly a decade of severe drought in Murcia, the dam's reservoir remained almost entirely dry. However, the heavens finally opened in March 1802, and by the end of April, the dam was on the verge of overflowing. That was when it catastrophically failed, unleashing a 40-foot-high torrent of water straight towards Lorca. The flood destroyed more than 800 homes, along with numerous industrial and farm buildings. The loss of life was also severe, with 608 people perishing in the flood. St. Francis Dam, located in California and completed in 1926, was a massive concrete structure about 70 feet long and stood towering at 205 feet high. Positioned roughly 40 miles northwest of Los Angeles, its primary function was to store water for the city's aqueduct network. Under the supervision of the Los Angeles Bureau of Waterworks and Supply, Chief Engineer William Mulholland, a self-taught engineer with experience in embankment dams, took the lead. However, this was a concrete dam, and crucially, during its design, the dam's height was increased by 20 feet without proper consideration of the impact on its overall structure. Tragically, just a couple of years after its completion, in 1928, the dam failed catastrophically, resulting in the deaths of around 400 Californians. The Malpasset Dam, located on the French Riviera near Cannes, spanned the Rairan River. Construction began in 1952, and the dam was completed a few years later, standing 218 feet tall and just over 22 feet thick. It featured a single spillway across its 736-foot length. The reservoir reached full capacity in December 1957, and that's when it failed. Days of extreme rainfall and gales likely contributed to the dam's collapse, which claimed the lives of 421 people. The death toll was exacerbated as flooded access roads delayed rescue services. An inquiry later revealed grave design deficiencies and a lack of thorough geological surveying. In Brazil, the Brumadinho Dam, constructed not for water but to contain toxic spill-off from iron ore mining operations, was filled with millions of tons of poisonous mud. When it failed in January 2019, it unleashed a torrent of toxic waste, engulfing nearby farms and villages and resulting in 270 deaths. The mine operator, Brazilian mining company Vale, was later ordered to pay compensation of $7 billion, a figure that might still rise. This incident is considered Brazil's worst industrial accident. The village of Corrego do Feijão was destroyed, and although an alarm system was in place, it failed to function on the day of the disaster. Surly Goncalves, a surviving villager who lost her husband in the tragedy, told the BBC, "Vale destroyed our lives. They must have known the dam would break, but they don't care about their employees. They care about their money." Located about 8 miles from Sheffield, England, the Dale Dyke Reservoir was held back by a 100-foot-high earth embankment dam, stretching 500 feet and enclosing a reservoir a mile long and a quarter-mile wide. As the structure neared completion in March 1864, a heavy storm struck, breaching the dam. This unleashed a torrent of 650 million gallons of water down the Loxley Valley, devastating towns and reaching Sheffield, where floodwaters rose to 6 feet, flattening houses, pubs, factories, and more, with at least 240 lives lost.